Welcome to this VCE Economics revision video, focusing on Unit 3, Area of Study 2, Domestic Macroeconomic Goals. In this video, we'll explore Australia's three key macroeconomic objectives: strong and sustainable economic growth, full employment, and price stability. We'll unpack what each goal means, how it is measured, why it matters for living standards, and what trade-offs can occur between them. Let's get started. Australia's macroeconomic goals guide government decision-making and help shape policies that support long-term economic prosperity. They provide a framework for evaluating the health of the economy and determining whether current conditions are improving the well-being of individuals and society more broadly. Let's begin with the goal of strong and sustainable economic growth. Economic growth refers to an increase in the volume of goods and services produced in an economy over time. It is measured using gross domestic product, or GDP. To account for changes in the price level, we use real GDP, which adjusts for inflation and provides a more accurate view of the economy's performance over time. The Australian government typically targets a real GDP growth rate of around 3 to 3.5% per year. This range is considered strong enough to support rising employment and incomes, but not so rapid that it risks overheating the economy or causing environmental degradation. Growth is important because it generates new job opportunities, increases tax revenue for government services, and leads to higher incomes, which contribute to improved material living standards. However, growth must also be sustainable. That means it should not deplete non-renewable resources too quickly, damage ecosystems, or contribute excessively to climate change. Now let's turn to the goal of full employment. Full employment does not mean that there is zero unemployment. Rather, it means that everyone who is willing and able to work at prevailing wage rates can find a job. There will always be some level of frictional, structural, or seasonal unemployment, so the government instead targets the level of unemployment that does not cause inflation to accelerate. This is known as the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment, or NAIRU. In Australia, the NAIRU is estimated to be around 4 to 4.5%. Understanding the different types of unemployment is important. Cyclical unemployment occurs when there is a downturn in the business cycle, when aggregate demand falls and firms reduce production and lay off workers. Structural unemployment arises when there is a mismatch between the skills workers have and the skills needed by employers, often due to technological change or shifts in industry composition. Frictional unemployment refers to short-term unemployment experienced by people who are moving between jobs or entering the workforce. Seasonal unemployment is tied to industries like tourism or agriculture that experience regular fluctuations in demand. Finally, hardcore unemployment involves people who are unemployed due to personal circumstances, such as long-term illness, lack of education, or social disadvantage. Full employment is important because it allows more people to participate in the economy, reducing welfare dependency and improving living standards, both materially and socially. Let's now explore the goal of price stability. Price stability refers to maintaining a low and stable rate of inflation. The Reserve Bank of Australia, or RBA, aims to keep inflation between 2 and 3% per year on average over the medium term. This target is designed to maintain purchasing power without introducing uncertainty or reducing consumer confidence. Inflation is measured using the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, which tracks the change in prices of a fixed basket of goods and services that reflect typical household spending patterns. There are two key types of inflation measured in Australia: headline inflation and underlying inflation. Headline inflation includes all items in the CPI basket, even those with volatile prices like fuel and fresh food. Underlying inflation removes these volatile items to give a clearer picture of the long-term trend. Each of these macroeconomic goals is measured using specific indicators. Let's start with GDP. Nominal GDP refers to the value of all goods and services produced at current prices, whereas real GDP adjusts for inflation and allows for comparisons over time. While GDP is a useful indicator of economic activity, it has limitations. It does not measure income distribution, non-market activity such as unpaid work, or environmental impacts. Therefore, while rising GDP suggests stronger economic output, it may not reflect improvements in well-being for all members of society. To measure employment, the Australian Bureau of Statistics conducts a monthly labour force survey. This survey categorises people into three groups: employed, unemployed, and not in the labour force. The unemployment rate is calculated as the percentage of people in the labour force who are actively seeking but not currently in work. The participation rate refers to the proportion of the working-age population that is either employed or actively looking for work. These indicators help assess how well the economy is utilising its human resources. Inflation is measured using the CPI, which is updated quarterly. The CPI assigns different weights to categories of spending based on how important they are in the typical household budget. For example, housing and food typically have higher weights than items like entertainment or clothing. Now let's consider why these goals matter. Economic growth, employment, and price stability are all linked to improvements in living standards. Growth supports rising incomes and government revenue. Employment helps individuals achieve financial independence and promotes social cohesion. Stable prices ensure that purchasing power is preserved and reduce uncertainty for both consumers and businesses. Non-material living standards also benefit when people are working, financially secure, and less exposed to cost of living pressures. However, these goals can sometimes conflict. For instance, policies designed to reduce inflation, such as raising interest rates, can reduce aggregate demand and increase unemployment. Similarly, rapid economic growth can put pressure on prices, leading to inflation, or strain the environment, undermining sustainability. These trade-offs require careful management by policymakers using fiscal and monetary tools. There are many factors that contribute to economic growth. In the short term, increases in aggregate demand, such as higher consumer spending, stronger business investment, or increased government spending, can stimulate output. In the long term, growth depends on the productive capacity of the economy, which can be enhanced through improved education and training, better infrastructure, technological innovation, and a growing population. Unemployment can result from both demand-side and supply-side factors. Demand-side causes include a fall in spending or investment, often triggered by rising interest rates or falling consumer confidence. Supply-side causes include structural changes in the economy, such as automation or the decline of certain industries. Global events, like financial crises or pandemics, can also have major impacts on employment levels. Inflation has two main causes. Demand pull inflation occurs when aggregate demand increases faster than aggregate supply, pushing up prices. This is common during economic booms. Cost push inflation occurs when production costs rise, forcing businesses to pass those costs on to consumers. For example, rising oil prices or wages can lead to cost push inflation. Inflation can also be imported when the prices of goods Australia imports from overseas increase. It's important to remember that all economic indicators have limitations. GDP doesn't measure happiness, environmental damage, or income inequality. The unemployment rate does not count underemployed workers or those who have given up looking for work. And the CPI may not accurately reflect cost of living pressures for all households, especially those whose spending patterns differ from the average. To summarize, Australia's three core macroeconomic goals, strong and sustainable economic growth, full employment, and price stability, play a central role in shaping government policy and promoting economic well-being. While each is valuable on its own, their combined achievement is essential for raising living standards across society. Understanding how they are defined, measured, and interconnected is a vital part of succeeding in VCE economics. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.